Good day, Bermuda. I'm Jamila Lodge of the Bermuda Economic Development Corporation, and this is Mind Your Business, the show that brings you the latest information about starting and running a local business in Bermuda. Join us as we discuss the local business issues that are important to you. Joining me today in the studio is my brother from another mother and father, Adrian Lodge. Welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here.
Okay.
So I would like to talk today to you a little bit about online business and the process that you kind of went through to get started. But before we do that,
Sure.
Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
All right. Well, I've got my master's in IT management. I did my dissertation on e-commerce in Bermuda, so I know a little bit about it.
I would think.
In terms of entrepreneurship, I've been
Yeah.
doing that since probably about high school when I used to sell cake in school.
Okay.
So I've always had that kind of mentality.
All right. Cake, huh? Homemade cake?
Yes.
Okay. I'm impressed. You bake the cake yourself? Or?
Well, that's hidden. But
Okay.
that's another secret.
Okay. Or we'll leave that for another day. So when did you first decide? I know you had your first foray into entrepreneurship selling the cake, but when did you decide that you wanted to officially start and run your own business?
Sure. So it was after high school. It was when I was first doing college that, I learned how to build a website. And from there, there was a need. I saw that people wanted it, but they weren't really, it was difficult for them to find people either locally or internationally who could do that.
Okay.
So, that's really how I got started building websites, and it just carried on from there.
Okay. So is that what you do now for your business? You build websites now?
Yep, that's one of many jobs that I do.
Okay. So would I be correct in saying you're a serial entrepreneur, or are they mostly in that e-commerce
Sure,
sort
you
of
could call
IT
it that.
world?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
But what I do is mainly IT based, so
Okay.
it's random things from network support, desktop support, application development,
Right.
to mobile app development.
Okay.
Yeah,
So which business are we going to talk about today?
that's up to you. We can talk about Bermuda Island Games if you want.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. Because for me, that one would be the most new one that I've been introduced to you. And why Bermuda Island Games? Why did you decide to develop that?
Sure. So 2 years ago, I did a rocket pitch with BDC, and I basically promoted, saying we want to start a company
Yeah.
that promotes Bermuda through games.
Okay.
And, it's a vague term. When people hear games, they immediately think of gambling, No, it's not that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe they're talking about sports. No, not that either.
Right.
We're talking about mobile games, PC games, that entertainment to
Yeah.
get people to know about Bermuda as they're playing.
So that could kind of happen prior to them coming to Bermuda, so they can
Exactly.
get their introduction to Bermuda through your games. And so when they come here, they already have some idea of what to expect when they get here.
Perfect.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. So how long has it been since you launched that? You said you did the rocket pitch. What was that, in 2015?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so after you did the rocket pitch, what was the progression from idea to actually getting the thing up
Sure.
and running?
So the first thing was to actually figure out what game would be best to actually start the company and go from there.
Okay.
And this was before America's Cup, so I had already had the idea of doing a tourist-based game because that's the largest volume of people who would want to know about Bermuda.
Right. That makes sense.
So we started with Hidden Gems of Bermuda,
Okay.
and that was designed to be sort of like a Pokemon type of game. I'm not sure if
Oh, cool.
you're familiar with that.
Okay, look. we were talking about age earlier on, so
Right.
I know what Pokemon is.
Okay, good. So basically, you take your phone as you go to different places around the island.
Yeah.
You'll score points by physically being there.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool. All right. So that was built. How long did it take you to go through that entire process?
Sure. So I had originally planned for it to be 3 months, and we met our target.
Okay.
So we started in October and launched 1st of January.
Cool. So let me, for those who may be considering this is why, I wanted you to come, is to try to share your experience about that process of
Yeah.
going through and identifying it. Now, you had I wouldn't say an unfair advantage, but an advantage
Right.
in that your whole kind of education and career has been in IT and development
Absolutely.
and that sort of
Yep.
thing. So I would imagine you knew who and how to do this sort of thing.
More or less. I mean, once you actually start doing it,
Yeah.
you learn that there's way more than you ever thought was possible.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And again, because I come from an IT background,
Yeah.
then I kind of knew the IT side, whereas I didn't know as much about the, marketing and HR and, all the rest. So in that respect, you need to always kind of delegate and not try and take on everything on your own. It's always great to have, at least one other person where you could bounce ideas back off.
Okay.
So in this case, Hidden Gems of Bermuda, there is actually a local company which has the same name, and that's how I found out about Ashley Harris.
Right.
So for this particular game, we ended up making a partnership. So we kind of worked together on this within the first 3 months.
That's a good idea, and it makes sense. And I think, especially in Bermuda, when you're identifying what target market or persons you're trying to attract and want to buy or download the game, if there's someone already in that industry, in that field, it makes perfect sense to partner.
Exactly. So for me, coming into this, I knew nothing about tourism.
Right.
I mean, I actually tried to, ask BTA for money and got rejected. Oh, no. So I had to go to Ashley Harris, who already had a relationship with them, to kind of work with them on the tourist part.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good idea. And for those who are watching, just because one door closes doesn't mean there isn't another way to get in the door, right?
Exactly.
You just have to figure out what that is and then leverage that contact like you did.
That's right.
So how is it going with regards to people's uptake or reception of the game? How do you find?
Sure. So it's not as good as I had hoped, obviously. I thought we would be hitting millions by now, or at least that's what you tell yourself when you first start this venture.
Yeah.
But then reality sets in, okay, we need to do this.
Yeah.
This is an obstacle. So I'll give you a real life example. When we first put it live, we were actually selling the game for $5 online.
Okay.
That's fine for any iPhone users, Apple, iPad, whatever. When you get to Google, Google Play, that's when we came across an issue.
Right.
And we had no way of knowing that until we actually went through the process and found out, okay, it does not work in Bermuda.
Right.
So we've been working with Department of E-commerce, who's now called ICT, to try and rectify that. But if you are looking to build any kind of game where you're trying to either sell it on the App Store or have in-app purchases, it's not going to work for Google.
Right.
So you need to rethink your revenue model before you even launch it.
Right.
And make sure that, you have a plan where it's going to be advertising based or subscription based or, that sort of thing.
Right. So having said that, have you found that you've had to change your business model a little bit to try and
to work around the issues that we've come up with?
Yeah.
So that's one thing, especially in the IT world, is you have to be flexible. You have to not just rely on, okay, here's the business plan, we're sticking to it. No, you have to adapt as things change.
Right. I think that's an excellent point, because especially in technology and in this industry in general, things change like that.
Right.
So you came up and built all this great stuff, and then next week it's something new, right?
Right, exactly.
So do you think that it's easy to kind of navigate this industry, the online technology world?
No, there's nothing easy about it. IT, as you said, is always changing. So there's always going to be that learning curve. As soon as you've mastered something, something else will come out.
Yes.
Right? So IT in general is, you always have that education mentality where you never stop learning.
Right. I mean, that's a good thing, right? Because we're all, in life, you should be continuous learners. And for someone who has ADHD, I would think that this would be a great industry for them because of the differences and the changes and all of that. So we have invited you to sit on a panel. As you know, BEDC project manages the Inspire eBusiness Initiative with the Department of ICT Policy and Innovation. And in November, which happens to be Global Entrepreneurship Month, really.
Yes.
On November 22nd, we're going to be doing a panel discussion, and you have been invited to sit on that panel along with one of the guests that we'll be talking to after the break. And I think the primary reason for that is to allow you to have this conversation with people who haven't yet experienced what you've experienced, right? Because I know from my standpoint, I'm always like, oh, this is how you do it. Step 1, 2, 3, 4, and then reality, right? Reality happens, and it doesn't quite go like that,
No, never.
right? you might have to go out of order. And so I think it would be great to have you on the panel to talk about like some of the challenges that you've already expressed, that in your mind, your initial business plan or business model was based on one thing, but in reality, due to whatever limitations or impediments, you weren't able to proceed down the road. So what do you do?
Yep.
Right? What's the next step? So we're going to have to go. I appreciate you for coming and sharing with us. But before I go, what are some things or some words of advice that you would like to give those out there who are watching about starting up their business?
Absolutely. So as I said earlier, make sure you don't try and do too much on your own.
Okay.
You want to have sort of a regiment or military approach to it where, if one person goes sick or, God forbid, if they go on vacation, then someone needs to step in. Right? But you also don't want to have it where you're relying just on that one person. So you need, someone else where you can delegate to, bounce ideas off of, that sort of thing.
So would you say get a team together to help you?
Yeah, absolutely. When you're starting up, you need a small team.
Now, would these team people, would you consider them to be partners or advisors, or what would you say? Which is better really, if there isn't?
It's up to you in that context. Any type of business that you're trying to start, just make sure that you have someone else that you can, speak with. Right.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I mean, I think those are great tips. And again, we'll have a little bit more time to talk a little bit about it when we have the seminar on November 22nd.
Okay.
And I'm encouraging everyone to come out and talk with you, pick your brain, and hopefully through your experience, we can help someone else maybe jump over the hurdles or avoid them altogether. And that is ultimately what I'm trying to do with this show. So I thank you very much for coming out and talking to us.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much for joining us for Mind Your Business. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
How do you get inspired? Join BEDC on Mind Your Business to find out how entrepreneurs get inspired to start up their businesses whether online or brick and mortar. Be part of the startup movement that can help you to start up the next great business idea. Tune in weekly to Mind Your Business, because if you don't, who will?
Welcome back to Mind Your Business. I'm your host, Jamila Lodge, and joining me now in the studio is Chris Phillips, owner of Delio. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad you're here. We were just speaking with Adrian Lodge, and he too is also an entrepreneur. And you are an entrepreneur, and both of you share the fact that you're both foraying into online business, and that's kind of what we want to talk about. So before I do that, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, let's see. I am the owner of Phillips Innovations, which owns Delio Deals. I went to Bermuda College. I have Associates of Science with distinction in Computer Information Systems. I'm a graduate of the Technology Leadership Forum program, and I'm now on the board of the Technology Leadership Forum. I also work as an IT salesman at CCS Group. I do a lot. It's all IT based, though. Yeah.
Well, you and Adrian have that in common. It sounds like entrepreneurship. You know how some people are like wired to be entrepreneurs? It kind of sort of sounds like you fit that bill. So absolutely. What or when did you decide that you wanted to start your own business?
I have wanted to start my own business since I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 36 now, and I'm just really starting my own business now, like from the legal perspective anyways, actually going and incorporating. But I've wanted to do it forever.
Right. Why?
Just because the whole idea of like churning out kids in school, in this case, now that you're in school, get a degree so you can get a good job so you can work for somebody else.
Yeah.
And I was totally in that mental headspace, and I met a friend of mine, and he was completely opposite to that. And it was like Claritin Clear, how that thing just kind of pulls back.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was for me. It just like, hey, wait a second, if I really want to be super successful, I don't want the ability to be fired by anyone.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. And I think that's something that BDC, where I work, we try and champion, right? Give kids another option besides just go here, get your degree, work for somebody else. You can do the degree part and go to school, but how about you start your own business? And so we're hopeful that through conversations like this, and for those who may be watching, they get that clear sort of situation happening for themselves as well, because I do think it's important, because I'm sure it's created opportunities for you, right? Yeah. What kind of opportunities since starting your own business have you been able to experience?
Well, I was pretty fortunate being involved with the Technology Leadership Forum that I knew a lot of people in the IT space. And working as an IT salesman, I knew a lot of people in the IT space. I got the opportunity to take the classes at BDC to kind of bring what I knew from growing up in Canada to Bermuda and understand what the legal aspects were here and the benefits to doing business in Bermuda. So it's been, the biggest opportunity has been just to meet more and more people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Delio, what is that?
Delio is a location-based app for your phone. It's a service where stores can basically give you alerts to when you're near a deal.
Oh.
So yeah, the whole idea is that we want to be able to spend more money in Bermuda.
Yeah.
And I looked at all the problems, issues that I had to cross in order for me to spend my money here.
Right.
Amazon is easy.
Yeah.
You know, mailboxes is easy.
Yeah.
But if I could find that product locally here and have it today, or actually feel it, try it on, be sure I want to buy it,
right,
and maybe pay a little bit, just a little bit extra,
yeah,
but knowing where it is, I would feel empowered to do so.
Okay. So for you, your creation of this app or of this business around this app was in response to a pain point that you felt. You're like, there has to be a better way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you watch the economy and the way things are going in Bermuda right now, and you want to do something to assist, or at least provide a medium that could assist even just a little bit.
Right.
You know, you want to make sure that the country's taking a step in the right direction and do whatever you can to help. So that was my investment in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So how did you find going through the process of, you had the idea, and now how did you get this thing built? Did you build it?
No, I didn't build it.
Okay.
And I know enough to be dangerous, and I know what I don't know.
Right.
And so programming and app development is something that I have the logical thought processes behind it, but I don't have the technical expertise to do it. So I did have to outsource it.
Okay.
I did as much as I possibly could, given financial constraints in Bermuda. So my SSL certificate's in Bermuda, my website is a .bm. Even though recommendations, people are like, oh no, go for the .com. I said, nope, this is Bermudian.
Right.
As much as I possibly could.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you go through that process? So for people who are watching and considering it, because I'm like, well, you know more than me, but if I were to build an app myself, I cannot tell you where to go, who to start. Well, maybe I would call Adrian. Yeah. but how did you determine where and how you're going to find that expertise?
Well, I was fortunate with my job where I'm at. I'm surrounded by plenty of people that are smarter than me, so I can ask lots and lots of questions. With all the partnerships we have at work, I can call right into the bigger companies and get suggestions.
Okay.
The thing you really have to keep in mind is, what is your minimum viable product? So I had big dreams. I could design the perfect app for me, but I am not every customer.
Right.
Right? So once I look at everything that's included and I start taking out stuff, I say, well, if I took that feature out, would it still work? If the answer is yes, take it out. If the answer is no, leave it in. And you end up with this very stripped down minimum viable product that you then present to your stakeholders. Yeah. And then you get feedback. You say, hey, you know what? I've got a lot of people asking for this one feature. Yeah. Let's put it in.
You know what, you bring up a good point, because I've had conversations with people, and I know people who are working on a product, an online product, and they're just working, and there's this iterative process that seems like it's going to go on forever. And it's like, well, when do you launch it? Like, when do you put it out there so that you can get the feedback? So what would be your recommendation for someone who's going through this process and they're just like, well, no this, and no, scratch it off, and this? Should they go through the process of trying to refine it until it's perfect? Or would you recommend that you, like you said, release something and then get feedback from your users and then refine on the go, I guess?
So it is, you're always in a continual set of development.
Okay.
You're always developing the app. I would give an example of making sure that your personal life or your first job
Yeah.
is completely and totally separate from influence of your app and your business that you're trying to start.
Okay.
So try not to let one influence the other.
Right.
Right? So if you have, I got to launch this thing now so I can make some money
Yeah.
because I got these bills over here coming up.
Yeah. Not a
They're
good look.
completely two different entities.
Right.
Right? As for the development part of it, just wait to
trying
hear.
perfect it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, make
Before
sure you have alpha customers or beta customers. Have a circle of trusted friends.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So even if you go for your minimum viable product, that necessarily may not be perfect at that time.
Right.
It's not going to be. Be prepared to make quick changes.
Yeah. Okay. I think. So you're saying release it. Let it go to the.
Release it to your alpha customers, which may be like a smaller ones, the ones that are more forgiving for mistakes and bugs.
Yeah.
Your closer friends or your closer friends who own businesses or whatever your stakeholders may be.
Yeah.
Get that feedback, incorporate that, then you do the big release.
Okay. Because I agree with you that it's going to be continuous, especially when you're in that industry and technology is changing. So what works today is not necessarily going to work tomorrow. So you're going to have to be prepared to make those changes anyway, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how has it been since when did you release that?
I released it a few months ago, just kind of like an alpha test.
Yeah.
I made the announcements in the news. I sent it out there. I got a lot of feedback from some people that had downloaded it, and then we're going to be relaunching again in the new year.
Okay.
And it's going to be totally free for everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's including the retailers and the consumers. So nobody pays for anything at this point. The company itself is very inexpensive to run because
Right.
it's completely online. I don't have
Yeah.
an office space, nothing. Everything is just monthly fees, whether it be for payment processing or bank fees or
Yeah.
hosting fees. Everything is just a quick fee.
Yeah.
So it's easy enough for me just to say, you know what, I'll take a couple $100 or whatever amount out of my pocket every month just to keep it running.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have an interesting marketing presentation come the new year.
Okay. So how do you make money?
Eventually, we will start charging, but the consumers will never have to pay anything. Because
Right.
our catchphrase is saving money shouldn't cost you anything.
Okay.
Right? If you
Yeah.
had to pay a membership for discounts, it's kind of like, is it worth it?
Right. That's a
So
good point.
it is marketing for businesses.
Mm-hmm.
It fits into their marketing budget. It's a very small monthly minimum fee for them,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how many features and how many listings they want to have.
Yeah.
And yeah, so consumers never pay anything.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think one of the things that you said, which is why I think we try and encourage people to consider online as an option when starting businesses, is because of the low overhead and the low startup costs. So aside from, I guess, building the thing, which I'm sure costs you a little bit of money, once it's built, and let's say you have another job, it's a great way for you to try, I guess, entrepreneurship or try starting your own business because it's online and because the overhead is low. So we didn't have a long time today to talk a bit about it, but I think you shared some great information, and you also have been invited to the panel discussion on November 22nd, which I'm hoping that people will come out to so that we can kind of pick your brains a little bit more. One of the things, or one of the challenges that I know a lot of people have expressed with starting online businesses is online payment processing. How do I get my money? How can I utilize the systems that are there but may not be in Bermuda to actually facilitate payment and transaction and all of that? So we don't have time to go through that today. I know you're like,
Yeah, I mean, I have some of those answers, but I mean, if anyone wants to contact me just to knock around an idea,
Yeah.
they can easily do that, sure.
yeah. Well, good. You're going to be with me on November 22nd at the Chamber, so I'm excited about that, and we will definitely go into it then. But I just want to say congratulations on the launch of Delio. I downloaded it.
Yep.
You saw it. But no, I think it's really exciting with you, with Adrian. You're coming up with these new ideas, and it makes me hopeful that the young people and others that are watching have an opportunity to go down the same path. So we're definitely a proponent of encouraging this type of entrepreneurship and development. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you for joining us today on Mind Your Business. If you have questions, contact the BEDC at 292-5570 or email us at info@bedc.bm. And remember, if you don't mind your business, who will?